guys, it's thrift flip time. In today's video, we're going to be taking one of those old magazine newspaper holders and turning it into something else. Let's go ahead and get started. I picked up this piece at the thrift store for $3, and when I saw it, I saw multiple different items that we could create. So what I'm going to do is start by taking everything apart. For me, this was really easy on this piece because the little decorative knobs on the side literally just unscrew out and the whole thing will disassemble. I'm going to be taking the two sides that are solid and turning those into decorative boards, and then taking the two long parts with the spindles and turning those into decorative ladders. For the rest of the pieces, I'm just going to be setting those to the side and saving them for a rainy day. I am beginning all of these pieces the same exact way. I'm going to wipe them down and clean them up. I'm going to fill in any holes that need to be filled in, and I'm going to give it a good sanding. I am trying out the Durham's wood putty. It's like water putty that I've been seeing a lot of people using that say it works great. It does work great. It dries decently fast. I honestly though just ended up grabbing some of my little Dollar Tree spackle stuff and filling in other areas too that didn't quite fill, the best way or whatever, which is, I'm telling you, it's operator error. Projecting when you're sleepy, I'm telling you, I have no patience. Anyway, I took that, I mixed it up. It works great. It dried within an hour. It sanded down beautifully, and it worked really well for the the breadboard style things that I'm going to be doing. I did take some masking tape and put it on the other side to keep the putty from pushing all the way through the hole, just to kind of have a stopper. Because of that, some of them I didn't get filled completely, so I did take that Dollar Tree spackle on the other side and fill those holes in the rest of the way, just because I needed it to dry a lot faster so that I could move forward. With all of these, I'm just going to keep it simple on myself and use white chalk paint to give all of them good coats. I'm sorry if you can hear my daughter in the background. I don't know if it's picking it up. She's very happy, so we're not going to kill her vibe. We're just going to let her be. So if you hear her, enjoy. Alright, so after I got everything sanded down and wiped down again, I used my white chalk paint. I just like to mix mine with a little bit of water to smooth it out a little bit. I feel like it doesn't go on as chunky, it spreads really even. But because of that, I do have to do a couple more coats. So instead of just doing two, I had to do three, which probably wouldn't have happened if I would have just done, the fully loaded paint. But I did that for each piece. I just painted them all at the same time. That way my dry times were all happening at the same time. And then I'm going to begin with sanding everything down. So I want one of my ladders to be very distressed, and I want the other one just to have some good distressing, but not as much. And then I'm going to take it and sand down my decorative boards as well. I'm just taking my 120 grit sandpaper or sanding block and rubbing it on all of those raised edges, just bringing that wood color back out and just really making the details of these different pieces pop. So once I'm done with that, I wipe everything down and I'm ready to put a sealing coat on each of them before I move forward. I'm just using some polyacrylic. I like to use the matte, and giving everything a nice good coat to seal in the chalk paint, seal in my sanding. I like the way that it looks right now, so I want to make sure that I don't do anything to disrupt that. For the first ladder, I'm just going to keep it simple. I love the way it looks just in itself. I love the curvy, wavy details that this has in it. So I'm just going to make a cute little burlap bow. I have like a burlap lace ribbon, wire ribbon that I'm going to be using to make a bow. If you don't know how to make a bow, this one, since it's different on one side, the ribbon is just burlap on one and lace on the other. What I'm going to do is kind of fold it to see what size I want. And then when I fold it under, I'm going to twist it like 180 degrees so that ribbon and lace is back on top, loop it back around, twist it again to where the lace and the ribbon is back on top. I just want to have 2 loops on each side. So once I'm done with that, I'm just going to use a small zip tie and hold the ribbon in place. From there, I'm going to cut off the ribbon from the roll, and I'm just going to give myself like a 1.5 to 2 inch little tail, and I'm going to take that tail and I'm going to wrap it back through to cover up that zip tie. I'm just going to put that in place with some hot glue, and attach it to where it's gonna stay, it's gonna hide the zip tie and kind of bring that look of the bow together. And then I'm going to kind of place it on the ladder to see where I want it to fall and how far I want my tails of my bow to come down to. I'm doing this in 2 parts. You won't know the difference. You're just going to take your ribbon and kind of line it up to see how long you want the tail to be, fold it in half at that point, and cut it to where you have 2 equal sides. I'm going to give my tail a little bit of flair just by cutting out a triangle. So what I do is I line my 2 ends up, I fold them in half, and then I cut from the outer corner up to the middle. When you let it go, you'll have the 2 tails to where they kind of go up in a triangle and down. I'm just gonna hot glue that to the back of the ribbon, and then I'm going to place the ribbon on the ladder. Originally, I was just gonna do it with a zip tie so that if someone didn't want the ribbon on there, they could just remove it, but I didn't want to be able to see the zip tie and I didn't want it to be able to slide around on there, so I did just hot glue it to there. It's easy enough for them to just pop it off if they want to. I didn't use a ton, but I really love how simple and cute this ladder is. I think it's absolutely adorable. I would love to hear your feedback on how it looks in the comments below. For the next ladder, I am going to be using some of my leftover IOD transfers. It's the Botanist Journal, I believe is what it's called. I'm using it on 2 of the projects today, and one of them is the other ladder. I am just using some of the pieces that I didn't use on the other board and doing up the ladder. There are some really cute, like taller, like lavenders, and there's a really cute, like taller flowers that have a little bee on there. And I think it would be very fitting and perfect to add that to the sides of the ladder. So I'm just gonna do that. Now with this, I have already sealed in my chalk paint, and that's what's gonna help this transfer really stick, especially because it's not a flat surface. On these, there is like a slight like little indent, so I just have to be extra careful when I'm transferring this that I get all the way into those little crevices and stuff to make sure that this transfer is going to stick. I just line it up to where I think it's going to look best, lay it down, and I'm using my Cricut little brayer or whatever thing you call it, and scraping all over the top of that transfer plastic to get that transferred onto the ladder really well. I did want it to kind of wrap around each side, so on some of them, you know, if it broke off cleanly, I just came back and reapplied it by lining it up. Other times I was able to kind of just wrap the transfer around and get it off that way all at one time. I just did this to where I thought it looked best, and I just placed things throughout the ladder. I didn't want to overwhelm it, but I wanted it to be, I don't know, just very organic and earthy, I don't know. But I love how it turned out. Once the transfers are on there, I just want to make them kind of match that same distressing. So I took my hand and I just kind of rubbed it over to make sure everything was adhered well. And then I took my sanding block and ran it along the edges again to break that transfer where it should be naturally distressed from what I did earlier. And then I sealed that in with more polycrylic. You do need to seal these transfers. So they suggest a water-based, a water-based like sealer, and the polycrylic is perfect for that. So I just did a thin coat over all of the transfer areas and set it aside, and this one is done as well. I don't know which one I like better. I like how simple the first one is, but I also just love these transfers so much, and I think they bring so much life into it. So I don't think I can choose. I'll leave it up to you guys. Let me know which of the ladders was your favorite. For the boards, the one board I'm going to keep just as like a little hanging decor breadboard, and then the other one I'm actually going to turn into a riser. I'm going to be reusing those little feet, or I'm going to be reusing those little knobs that we took off at the beginning and turning them into little feet. I applied them with just some hot glue and some E6000. The hot glue for an instant bond, the E6000 for that long hold, and I did 5 of them, 1 on each point of the board. I did that before I actually painted anything, so that I knew that those feet were going to adhere really well. You don't want to paint your surface and then add them, because then the paint could peel off and not give it a nice, good, sturdy seal. For the one with the feet, I'm just going to keep it super simple. I'm just going to give it some simple like grain sack striping, To do this, I'm just going to use some masking tape. I'm not going to worry too much about whether it bleeds under or any of that. Typically, if I'm stenciling, I'll use the base color or a clear like Mod Podge or sealer or something to put a coat down to make sure that any bleeding that happens with those coats, so that you can't tell normally at all, but if so, like very hard to tell. With this, I'm going to be distressing the lines back down, so I'm not going to worry about that. So all I'm going to do is pick where I want my stripe to go, and I'm going to start by putting a piece of masking tape down. I am then going to take a piece of masking tape on each side of that piece that I just put down, secure those down really well, and then use my heat gun on low and just kind of hit that middle strip and peel it away. I'm doing that to make sure it doesn't peel anything from underneath, but I'm going to peel that one away because that's where the paint's gonna go. I'm just using my black acrylic and a way too large stencil brush. It was just what was sitting next to me and what I grabbed, but I could have made my life a lot easier by not doing that. Anyway, I just took it and kind of swirled it around and got kind of the look that I wanted for it. Before it even dried, I took my heat gun and I peeled up those other two pieces of side tape. I used my heat gun to go ahead and lock that paint in so that I could put another piece right over top of it. That way I know that I'm not going to accidentally mess that up. Then I took another piece and I slightly overlapped it a bit. That way I could kind of keep a gap between this line, you know, a black line, a white line, and then the next line of paint. So I made sure that that was even the best I could all the way down. And then I took, you know, a third piece and I gapped it a little bit to how big I wanted my next stripe to be and put that down. Did the same as before. I just applied my paint and then I used my heat gun to peel off all of the tape. I used my heat gun to set that black line in as well, and then once I knew it was nice and dry, I took my sandpaper and I sanded down the entire front just to kind of give it like an even overall look. Sanded away any of those harsh lines and sanded away any of those like heavy bleeding spots and left it at that. I just sealed it in just to make sure that nothing's going to come off or peel and everything's going to stay in place, and that piece is done. I think this one's super cute, super simple. Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'm trying to do one simple piece and one that's a little more involved as far as visuals, and I really like how simple and easy this one was. For the next one, I'm using the rest of my IOD transfers. I'm sad to say that I'm out of them, so I might have to place another order soon, but I'm going to use it to place on the face of this decor breadboard. Everything is already sealed in with my polycrylic, so I'm just going to lay it down, line it up, and start transferring. Again, I'm just going to use my little Cricut tool and rub it on all of the edges, making sure that all of the pieces come off. As I'm peeling, I'm looking at the plastic to make sure everything's stuck, that there's no little pieces left. If there are, you just lay it back down, rub it again, and it should come off. And you're going to do that all the way across, working from one corner to the next, until you have your image transferred the way you like it. From there, I pull it off. I like to take my hand and kind of rub it over to make sure everything is stuck properly. And then again, I took my sanding block to hit all of the edges to make sure everything looked evenly distressed. And then I did lightly sand over top of the entire transfer. Lightly is the key because you don't want to rip anything, just to give it, you know, that full distressed look. And then I sealed it all in with polycrylic. From there, just to give it a little bit more detail and where the image kind of cuts off, I wrapped some twine around the top of it and just kind of tied it in a knot, and I left those little strings. And then I put a piece of jute through the little hole at the top, which I filled originally not thinking about it, and I was like, oh, I probably should have left that. So I used a self-drilling screw and a screwdriver and just put that down through there because I was too lazy to go get my drill. I think that's the theme of this. I'm lazy. You can make cute things and be tired too, guys. Like you don't have to give it your full force energy for things to turn out great. Don't listen to me. This is not life advice. Anyway, that's it for this project as well. I would love to hear from you guys which one of the boards is your favorite, and then what's your overall favorite out of all four of these pieces. I genuinely still don't know. I really like each of them for different reasons, but I would love to hear from you in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video and you think did a good job, you enjoy seeing this type of content, give me a thumbs up. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. We would love to have you join us. If you're returning, thank you so much. I appreciate all of your support. I'm going to take you guys in for a closer look, and I'll see you next time.